Hello, folkies.
Hello, wandering.
Hello.
What?
Hello, wandering. We are wandering.
We're definitely wandering.
We are wandering.
Wandering, I don't know, we're wandering into wildness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're
And,
wild. That's what's happening.
today we're wandering into wellness with Tony Riddle.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Great.
Tony, I like.
Life is great.
It is great. And you know, when we picked up on the people we were going to interview at this, I think I followed you before this, but
Okay.
like the Natural Lifestylist was something that had come across my bows, but Tony Riddle as a name hadn't.
There we go.
And so I was like, yeah, there was
Nice
curiosity.
to be known as the real name.
Yeah, isn't the real man, the actual man behind the
Yeah, I
mask.
was christened as, I had a tag at birth.
Yeah.
We're going to call
Barcode.
him out the Natural Lifestylist. Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, so Tony, you have spent the last, well, I don't know, I mean, like a number of years. I know you've been involved in like the fitness industry for a long time, and there was like a story there along with like Pilates and other movement structures, and you've been going kind of backwards and peeling the layers off the onion now for a good few years. And
Yeah, physically, socially, and spiritually. Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
exciting. So like, can you? I suppose I'm so interested in so many things you talk about.
For us, it's like the dream podcast. It's kind of our,
Oh, I love
our
This
thing.
is our gig. This is
No
our gig.
pressure.
But I think
We've
like,
got stage fright now.
No.
Yeah.
But it is actually no pressure.
Yeah,
It's like no pressure for us as well, because we're like, okay, good. We're all really excited by these things,
Yeah.
and then there's no thing of what questions are we going to ask, or might there be a silence? It
It's just a
feels like
conversation.
it's just a
Yeah.
conversation, which is how we like it. Really.
yeah. So you came over to Ireland a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I flew in. When did I fly in? On Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
And you
Straight
got
to
up, did-
Greystones.
Great. Did the swim rise situation.
Staying with Justin and his wife Beatrice. They put me up there. Great.
Nice.
Like really lovely. Really
Okay.
looking after me. And did this big swim rise that Joe Wicks and Happy Parrot organised.
Oh, wow.
Which was fab.
Huge. And how many people were at it? Was it?
I think it was about 1,000 people. It's something like that large number.
Wow.
And I've been over quite a few times now with the guys and done the morning swim. But I hadn't actually been to one that they'd really
Like
gone
the
into
big
organising.
ones.
And
Yeah.
with Joe's power behind it as well, I think it just exploded.
It's got a weight of.
Yeah, and I love it as well. This morning, I went out there and we had a swim again this morning. And I just looked out and the sun was coming up. This is one of those moments, it's glorious. And I just said, Greystones just keeps giving.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that. It's
quite
such
magic.
an interesting hub, and that, and the community, and of course the guys that's what they're growing, right? It's their thing.
Yeah. For you, like sea swimming, do you remember your first time kind of going, as opposed to plodding around as a kid paddling, the first time you kind of actively went, I would like to go and swim in the sea, or has it been something you've always kind of just
Well,
done?
we lived in Ibiza for a bit, so
Okay,
that swimming was just we were on
daily.
the beach, right?
Okay,
so it
yeah.
was just a daily thing. I'd get up early before anyone else got up and
Yeah.
sit there and watch the sun come up. Slightly
Nice.
different experience.
Yeah.
Although, no, because it's about 10 degrees here, so I think over the winter it's probably the same there.
Yeah.
So that's real fond memories, because it would just be with the kids that we could take them throughout the day. And when we're unschooling as well, they would just, imagine that, the classroom's like the beach.
That is
as
what it
it
should
should
be.
be for all of us.
Yeah.
But I think if I take it back, I would go into like places like Cornwall,
Okay.
you know, because the sea is really powerful there, and the surf's good there, and I remember my fondest memories would be, I think, the Cornish coastline, yeah.
Really.
That's my
So
big thing.
nice.
connection to the sea, or that body of water. And then wherever I go, I always want to get in the sea. It doesn't really matter the temperature.
Yeah.
I'm drawn to that.
Nice. And what
Yeah.
do you find so a swim rise, when you're doing it solo, right? You have like all of this other sensory stuff going on. You have that water moving around you. You have your own sensation in the water.
Yeah.
You've like your central nervous system can only take in so much. So how different is it when you have 1,000 people? And what's the purpose? What's the difference in purpose, do you think, in when it's the version of you solo versus you with that
Well, it's a
massive
different
community of
sensory
people?
upload, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're getting that huge collective emotion,
Yeah.
and so you're then stirring up other happy hormones, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, rather than just thinking of it as, I'm going in the cold to do this immune system, metabolism, this, and be really rigid, and it's a morning ritual, and
Yeah.
oh, what if I don't do my morning ritual?
I
You
know,
it's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be a disaster. It wasn't about that. It's about it's about community. I think the social primate, let's say, the social ape within us, we need that. You know, we're so disconnected from that.
Yeah.
Or independence, walking around just disconnecting the whole time. It's great for a collective to come like that.
Yeah.
You know, and just the energy on the day.
And
Was it overwhelming? No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
I felt that I didn't really see 1,000 people.
Okay.
Because we were also in our little sub tribe.
Yeah.
and there was lots of can we get a photo
Yeah, yeah.
because that was going on, which
Yeah.
is nice at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And I met some great people. It's a good opportunity to connect and
Yeah.
networking, let's say,
Yeah.
which is connecting, right?
Yeah.
in
Social
some way or
networking.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
I think there's that feeling of communion as well, isn't it?
Mm.
It's like modern communion outside of a church.
Yeah.
And you have all that group of people coming together to literally just like feel
Mm.
feel
It
each
raises,
other's thing,
it,
raise that.
it raises the frequency, doesn't it?
Yeah,
As I
big
say, there's like the human connection is so powerful, then community, and then it's like that feeling of tribe. So you're ticking multiple social boxes, and then you have the physical experience, what the sensory upload is, and then of course the body of water, and then I was doing breath work as well before going in. So I'm kind of there's so much value in there.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's a big experience.
Yeah, I mean, imagine doing 1,000 a week. That'd be like incredible.
I know.
Imagine getting
Just
that
never
going.
die,
I know.
possibly.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah.
Nobody's just tried
Yeah,
that experiment yet.
longevity study.
Yeah.
What's so nice about Gracelands, because obviously I live in Gracelands, is that every day, summer, winter, it doesn't matter what the weather, you go down to the beach and there's people of all ages getting in for their swim. And they really do, I mean, like freezing cold in the middle of the winter, there's like a bunch of people, and a lot of older people who've been doing it for years and years, and get in, and they're just hardy, they're right in there, right back
Yeah.
out again. And my son's going up and chatting to them, what are you doing? And they're naked and they're trying to get the swimmers back on, and that's such a lovely thing, such a feeling of like stripping away any of those barriers. It's
Yeah,
just
the
like,
social stuff again. It's the barriers. We had in Ibiza. Our kids would pretty much play. We had a farm there, and the kids would pretty much play naked. We'd put them in the car naked, drive to the beach. They'd get out the car, and they'd be naked on the beach.
Wow.
And everyone was just naked on a lot of time.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
a very different experience for them. And then the conditioning back in, because it's all about the petri dish, the environment that you're in at that particular time will culture you in. And so, a short period of time in London, it's like, okay, we're on the heath, you can just run around, do what you want.
Yeah.
Or is it okay to take my...
Yeah. And are your kids asking that question?
They're asking it, whereas
Yeah.
before they were just naked. So there's already that conditioning without anyone saying it.
The what's okay.
It's just through their observation. It's not what their tribe around them are doing, so therefore they feel it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's
amazing how much we
important
pick up
that-
those cues, isn't it?
Well, kids
Yeah.
especially, right?
Yeah.
Because they're learning everything through those observed patterns.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about templates. It's the same thing. Suddenly, the template is, we wear clothes here.
Yeah.
And did you feel like, did you die a little on the inside when they were like, Daddy, shall I wear clothes? Or like, how did you feel about it?
There's parts of that, but again, it's at the same time they need to experience everything
Sure.
rather than just get cultured into one petri dish. Why not look at multi-petri dishes, give them multiple experiences, and then that's huge growth.
Okay. And you don't think that's massively confusing?
No, not at all.
No, you think they can jump into from one thing to the other,
So
experience
much
different
more.
templates of
They
family
can
and different
adapt
templates
far
of these
better
things.
than we can. We get conditioned in the one way. We live in
Yeah.
the same village for the same amount of years. And
Yeah.
we go, I'm not sure I could go and live anywhere else. Where they've lived everywhere. Right?
Yeah.
They just go next place. We don't spend much time in an area.
Yeah.
We move around a lot.
Yeah.
And we've reduced. We've been minimalist, right? So we've reduced everything down that we own into like 5 suitcases, so we can just pick up, go to the airport, and go.
Nice. How do you feel about, so I've heard this great saying, like the soul travels at the pace of a camel.
Yeah.
So that like being rooted in a place has value as well, that like that when we move around a lot,
Yeah.
that we sort of lose our like real connection to the earth, no matter how many sea swims and how much grounding and breath work we're doing.
Much breath work you do.
What do you think about that, like location and
I think it's
humans
hard
and that
to
stuff?
understand that because we're traditionally a nomadic species.
Yeah,
So
it's
if you
a
look
weird
at
one.
the tribes of today, let's say Penen tribes or Bengali tribes or nomadic tribes of today, they're moving around a landscape constantly.
Yeah,
And
but
what-
not in a Boeing
But
747.
what we're doing is we're reducing that.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
for
yeah.
them, we're taking away the environment they can be free to move in as a species
Yeah.
and connect with. So they are the plants, the rocks, and the animals, and they're not separate of it. So therefore, they don't need to ground.
Yeah.
They can just be nomadic and move wherever because they are wherever.
They're instinctive to the
They're
environment.
everything.
Yeah, whatever's
And
there.
we're separate of. So we have that. We're separate of an ecosystem because of this huge, great big ego thing, right?
Yeah. And so when you, well, I mean, they have egos as well at some level, right?
No, the Bengali tribe, no.
Really?
There's no leadership. They're pure anarchy.
Oh, wow.
And the moment any of them display male ego, for instance, they have a ceremony where they have like a straw being, and they push the straw being out of the tribe, which is the male ego, until
Wow.
until they're ready to come back. And I think it's the Bengali that, don't quote me on this, I'm sure it's them, is that they, again, if they start saying, well, I'm the best hunter, or I'm the best that,
Okay.
they just take their tools away from them. and then they push them out until they're ready to come back in again.
Wow.
So they recognise there is,
That's fascinating.
but they have things in place to deal with it. at the
Checks
same
and
time.
balances.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who talk about, and even in Western, I can't speak to these ones, but Western like practitioners or teachers of Eastern spiritual philosophies, and they would say like some of them would say like that the ego is actually the source of all drive to do things. So it's like a necessity. So you don't believe necessarily that it actually has to be there at that level, but that the community has the
the
will to do things, is it?
Conditioning, isn't
Yeah.
it? So most of these philosophies understand that they're, say, 5,000 to 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
Right, that's when farming came in.
Yeah.
Which was domestication, that
Mhm.
removed us from being a wild species that was the environment.
Yeah.
So again, going back to what I was saying about kids, up until in tribes that they recognise, Peter Gray, who wrote Free to Learn, they asked 10 anthropologists how childhood looks.
Okay.
And the anthropologists came back, these 3 different geographic locations of tribes, and the kids just play from infancy through to the age of 16. So saying they just learn everything they need to learn about adulthood without
Yeah.
adult intervention.
Yeah.
So in that process, they've become everything. They play at being everything. So they're the plants, the rocks, the animals. Therefore, they have compassion for everything. They are it. They are one consciousness.
Yeah.
And then when they go into adulthood, then we have to question: are the adults working, or are they just simply playing?
Okay. Yeah.
And then they're in a state of flow, which we're all reading about and trying to achieve. They have it, but we're the ones trying to remove it. So I guess when you look at a wild being compared to where we look at Eastern philosophies still they're dealing with the scars of domestication.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
Ayurveda is basically recognizing that there's scars of this, and then teaching people how to become nature. But at the same time, we're then trying to understand how to make food groups more digestible through Ayurveda.
Yeah.
But those food groups are farmed food groups, they're not wild food groups.
Yes.
So there's thousands upon thousands of plants that are edible, and through farming we then created a small crop, right? And then we were heavily influenced by grain and wheat and everything else. And then through Eastern philosophies again, we have to cook the grain for a certain period of time, we have to stir the milk for a certain amount of time, heat the milk, add spices to it, so it's more digestible. But that's not wild.
Yeah.
That's still it's a scar of domestication, I call it.
Okay, that's really interesting. I like that way of looking at it. And so, when you approach your own life, like,
Okay. Yeah.
You're
Right.
right. From a dietary point of view, when you approach your own life, how do you deal with? So we've got loads of this is a big conversation. Sorry, but
It's huge.
so there's issues around like the locavore movement, where it's getting things from too far away. There's issues around the processing of things when they're accessible to us. There's issues around like the organic kind of nature of things, and then there's issues of seasonality. What do you prioritize in terms of your diet, your kids?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Like
It's like impossible, to be honest.
Where we are, we order from Riverford because we just think they're amazing what they're doing, and the guy again behind that is just going out and sourcing and finding the best source of organic foods, and just driven by that. And now he's going to sustainability and understanding that, right, this is the current issue. This is what we need to prioritise more than anything else. So we're bang on board with Riverford, I think, for us. And there's seasonal boxes within that.
Nice. Okay.
You know, and then they deliver whatever, and then you have other stuff that you might want to subscribe to.
Sure.
And there still is a little bit of shipping from Europe and stuff that comes in, but again, prioritising like these are organic food groups.
Okay.
And then if you go seasonal, then not so much of that. It will be like what's available in the UK.
Great.
So you have that choice that you can. And then going back to looking at tribes, and if you look at a tribe, let's say that's in the tropical belts, that's the region around the equator, let's say, right? There is no season.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like,
they don't eat seasonally.
Don't
They
think
just eat
about
what's available. So that would be the more natural way of doing things, right?
sure.
So then we have to say that then even that means that we have some domesticated version of that, trying to get the nutrients on board. And they will eat innately in a way, won't they?
Yeah.
So their body's in tune with, right, that's available, they know where to go, there's a whole process. And I think what's driving that is they understand emotionally what they need, physiologically what they need, what their energy needs, what their digestion needs. They're so in sync with that. And the food groups at that point, even by picking it and smelling it and go through the process of foraging for it, already is stimulating enzymes and a sensory system that prepares a digestive system that then means that you're nourishing the cells, which then nourishes everything else. What we have is, unfortunate, it doesn't matter, you could have a really I was about to swear then, crappy diet, but an amazing digestive
You
system.
can swear on here, by the way. That's okay.
With an amazing digestive system, and then you're away. You could have the most amazing diet and no ability to absorb anything, and it's a waste of time. So I think we can talk about seasonal food or where we get it from or anything else, but I think first thing is to heal your digestive system and look at that level first.
Yeah.
And then have a conversation of, right, where I need to be getting things. And I think through that process, that you'll start to drive more towards what innately you need. It's a bit difficult for us because it's been conditioned in those first years.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you've hurt yourself, here's a Mars bar.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, here's a hug.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So you suddenly have love for the Mars bar, and it doesn't mean anything, it just means something else. I had it with growing up, my dad we'd hardly see him, work so damn hard, run a business that was going down the pan, worked even harder.
Jesus.
And we used to see him, if we were lucky, on a Sunday. But we had no money, but he managed to go to the pub, and he managed to go to snooker, and he managed to drink on a Friday night, and he'd managed to buy a packet of salt and vinegar crisps, and he'd managed to leave it underneath my pillow, and I'd wake up on Saturday morning, and that would mean much more than anything else to me. So I've done so much journeying and so much work and alcohol, drugs, all that stuff, just managed to drop it all, no attachment, through deep inner work.
Yeah.
And yet still that smell of salt and vinegar crisps.
It's overwhelming.
You see? So we're up against so much there.
Yeah.
But I think if you can minimise, I think we have to look at the sustainability model with getting food in. You know?
Yeah.
Where it's coming, what's the packaging, you know, what that process is. Is there a process to start with? Is it process? Minimise that. And try and go back to just natural foods, whether it's seasonal, whatever it means, just go to nature to begin with, because otherwise it is overwhelming. There's far too much to do. So it's like, right, strip out the covers, take away all the stuff that's in a packet, in a tin, whatever it is, go back to eating real food, and then you can start to then develop a system. And for me, it went from digestion to understanding what my cells need, and then getting my dosha, which is then through Ayurvedic work, understanding what my energy needs. Because if that's out of balance, my digestion is going to be affected. And then my cells aren't going to receive what they need through digestion. The other thing is stress, right? Learn breathing techniques to help you get into a parasympathetic state, so then you get the salivary enzymes again, you prepared your digestion, because if you're stressed, your digestion gets affected. Why? Because I'm being attacked by a lion right now. The first thing I do is I'm going to make a big shit in my pants. You know?
Evacuate and then
and
evacuate.
Then I need the energy that's say 60 to 80% of the digestion, that fuel that's going digesting from food alone, to fight the lion or flee, right? Chances are I'm going to run like crazy, right? Barefoot, whatever it is, I'll be out of the room. So it's the digestive system first, you know, down-regulate, get into breath techniques, and a part of that could be even saying grace at dinner, whatever it is. But also just setting an intention, have respect for what you're eating, the process of it, where it's come from.
I literally said that to somebody yesterday in the shop in a consultation, where like, maybe just start saying grace, because like so often it's that cephalic phase that gets missed. And every time I'm talking to people like about bitters, and even as we're talking now, you start to salivate like instantly. That hormonal thing is incredibly deep, that switch.
Oh, have you done any mindfulness coaching with the raisin?
No, go on.
They put your hand out like this. I did it on a retreat with these guys, and we had a mindfulness coach, Mindful Martin his name was, he was brilliant. And you put your hand out, you put a raisin in there, and they put the raisin in. You have to look at the raisin, keep looking at it, and you study the raisin, all the little creases in it, and they're all so different, right? So then you start rolling it around and picking it up and smelling it and putting it back into your hand. Half an hour, and you're like, salivating. And by the time you get to eat it, it's like the best raisin you've ever had.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So it's that process, and that's what I think we're missing, you know, from again being a wild species. Is that thing where we go around, we'd be smelling and tasting. And if you're partly, you know, if you don't have any clothes on, like they don't have any clothes on, right? Every upload is going on, not just sensory. The microbiome and the sensory system is getting that. You know.
I'd like to go back to like, so you have 3 daughters.
Yep, Lola, Millie, Tallulah. 9, 7, and just turned 3. It's 9, 7, and 3. And a new one on the way.
Really?
We don't know if it's a daughter. We just have another baby on the way.
Oh wow! How close?
We're 17 weeks right now.
Okay.
So birthing and that, the whole world is a massive part of what I do in my work with women. And I guess I'm interested to know, when you met your partner, was she in a similar mindset as Pravara's? Like, what kind of birth were you planning to have? How were you playing into microbiome stuff with that? How are you looking at it from a wilding point of view?
Well, when we met, we were slightly different. You know, I had a Pilates studio, and Katerina was working on reception in the health club I was in, and I just, go to speak to her. It's like, first of all, just can you write your number down? No, can you go and get a piece of paper and a pen? So she went, well, yeah, can I help you? I said, yeah, can you get a piece of paper and a pen? And then, yep. I said, right, Renee, you can write your number down. And I'll take you out to dinner, and that was it. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, but I wasn't plant-based then. I was into paleo, and I took her to Gaucho Grill, which is like a steak joint, you know, and Argentinian steak. And yeah, she sat there really uncomfortable on like a cowhide.
Oh my God.
It's cowhide chairs and these massive platters of meat being shoved in your face. Which one would you like?
Uh-oh.
And she was like, I'm vegan. And I was like, oh, okay.
How far into the actual, like, have you ordered?
I was like, just immediately. And then, so it's fine, I rescued it, we were okay. And then from there, I was like, wow, this was great. You know, it could have been disaster that, but it wasn't. And then, you know, as things started to unravel, Katerina came from like a yogi background, but really living the yogi rather than just on the mat.
Yes.
It was a lifestyle thing again. And so that was in place. And she'd also been a nanny, she was a school teacher. And then when she was working behind that reception, she was nannying plus converting her degree. So I was like, wow, this woman's amazing, right? Really dedicated. And so her background then was into Montessori already. So there's a Montessori approach coming in.
Okay, yeah.
And then looking at things like positive discipline, which is then the language and the behaviours around the children, what they're going to observe and what they're going to hear, and whether you're going to create like a child that's looking for a punishment or a reward, you know, it's that kind of system. And then when we found out we were pregnant with Lola, it was like a very easy conversation. It was just, okay, we're going to go natural birthing. And Katerina then read the continuum concept, which then it related to all the work I was doing, so it was easy. It was just, oh wow, of course, there's a natural way, these are natural beings, right? So let's look at what we do in nature again. It was obvious, it just seemed like an obvious step.
And was that a fairly new book? Was that an old one?
It's an old book, so it's, I think her name's Janet Leadoff, and it's the continuing concept. So that's about, she went to live with tribes, I think it was like for 5 years, and then what she noticed is that what the big take home was that children weren't crying, and why weren't they crying? And it's because they simply have all their needs met. So they're always carried, they're not put down, they're not, you know, in a separate bedroom. And then we started to align with someone called Yehudi Gordon. He's a client of mine who wrote Birth and Beyond. So he brought natural birthing into the UK. And so he started to then open up doors and say, oh, have a look at this guy. And he showed me this video of Joseph Chilton Pierce. And then it was like, whoa, this stuff's insane, because he starts to look at frequencies and heart rhythms. And so that if you have a baby, and even in the first year, before the baby understands that it's separate from the mother, so at that stage it's one with the mother. And then once you take the baby up to 4 feet, or you can do an ECG up to 4 feet away from the heart, right? So 12 feet away, if you take the baby beyond that, they realise that the baby would become incoherent with heart rhythm. So you're stressing your baby by removing it from 12 feet away from the mother, which is insane, right, from what the social norm of today in parenting is, and what we're led to believe. And then there was breastfeeding in there, and then co-sleeping. And then I started to discover more and more about microbiome. And then you could understand from the microbiome that the baby picks up obviously the mother's bacteria in the vaginal canal and the anus as the baby's coming out. That's then its foundation for its gut. So, and then it takes 3 years to reach maturity. So then how long should you be breastfeeding for when properties in breast milk are literally just for the bifidobacterium in the baby? So one should suggest that nature has designed it so it's 3 years, because it takes 3 years to nurture that. But the social norm from the health practice is that you only need to breastfeed for 6 months.
Or you don't even.
Or you don't. No, here's a bottle. I was bottle fed, right? And then the problem is that when you have that and you have this surgical pharmaceutical experience, that then you're lining the child up to have bacterial issues and autoimmune diseases. You know, it's a huge
thing, I think,
massive.
though, because how do you, you know, that's my, you're basically talking about my world, all the stuff that I read about, all the stuff that I'm involved in, all the stuff that I did with my son. But it's very hard, I think, that we have these ways that we want to raise our children and ways that we want to be, and that's fine in our bubble. But then when you have grandparents and external people who want to come in, it's really alienating for them, or it can be really alienating for them, and there's so much judgment that can come in. And I found that it was really hard to not make a massive divide between me and either my friends or my family by the choices that I was making. And it wasn't me going, this is the way you should do it and your way is wrong. It's just me going, this is what I'm doing. But people find that very challenging.
Yeah, I've given up on even saying this is almost what I'm doing. Almost just this is actually what I'm doing. Just living it. And like we had it with my parents. My parents were the same. It's like, and what you realise is that it's guilt. That's what you're raising with them, because they know that they fell into a system, and they relied heavily on a system. And the system would say, well, this is the way you're going to raise your child. So I was taken away, you know, and then put in a different room from the mother. And the mother's heavily sedated, and the babies are all in one room, disconnected, over 12 feet away from the mother, completely just distraught, right? And we all went through that, right? And then into being bottle fed, and then this, and it was just this life of convenience they're trying to create. So you're dealing with, there's a lot of guilt wrapped up in that. You know?
Yeah,
and does it change? Well, of course it does, because what happens is, like, we're having this conversation now, right? Whereas people weren't having that conversation. Yeah. And then the bubble just goes, and you get more and more people in it over time, until that's how we make social change. Again, if there aren't the people on the fringes going, this is what we're doing, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And we were the first ones really that we recognised carrying around in even a baby sling with load. Everyone else had pushchairs and bugaboos and all this stuff. Yeah. We were like, no, we're going to do a sling. My parents were like, what are you doing? Well, this is the connection. Then when you explain it to them, it's a very different thing. But also I like to give people books. And I think where Josie is a friend of ours, she's a positive discipline coach. And her mum looks after her daughter a lot of the time. And Josie's like so knowledgeable and lives in this positive discipline Montessori bubble that she has. And so she asked her mum to come on board to one of her classes or one of her programs. So her mum sees, this is what it's about, this is the language, but sees Josie outside the model of the daughter, and sees her as the professional. And parents don't like to be taught by their kids, but the problem is that they become elders, not elders. So as elders you go for their wisdom, which was wild wisdom, whereas now they've lost all that wisdom because they relied heavily on a system. And it's up to us then to try and regain that, so our kids then have elders again, not olders. You know, so I think it's okay to have this little bit of, you know, toughness going on, and it also helps you refine your message in a way and your behaviours, so they become much more clear and easier for you to present and easier for people to hear. I think it's, are you being heard, and why aren't I being heard? You know, it's why are they not listening almost?
I think what I find difficult, and I don't know how this is for you, because obviously I haven't met your children, but my son is really, he's wild. Like, he loves to be in nature. Brilliant. That's our thing. Like, all day we're climbing mountains and outside. And he's a big energy kind of a guy, and he's also really sensitive. But he likes to push every boundary. And for me, that's like, it's a really normal stage of development that he's in. It's also his personality type. We're all different, right? But he really needs to know where his safe zone is. And so if he doesn't feel secure with the person he's around, he's going to push every edge till he can find, like, okay, here's where I'm safe. And like, and what happens if I do that when you're angry? What happens if I do that when you're sad? And what happens if I do that when you're tired? And he's going to keep doing that until he feels like a safe zone. And that's fine for me. But, and I know why I'm parenting him the way that I am, and I feel good in it. But when there are external people that come in and they see his behavior as being like, he doesn't want to sit in a chair, he doesn't want to sit at the table, he doesn't want to, you know, stay in the place here while you're doing your work, and he doesn't want to sit in colour for ages or whatever, they're going, well, wait, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. Your child's not behaving in these ways that they're meant to.
It's a condition, right?
Condition, exactly.
You could just respond and say that I don't want to condition my son. I don't want him conditioned. Why can't he just be a free spirit and just draw when he wants to draw? Otherwise you're forcing play. Like, you know, the play state we're talking about. You know, my wife's great at this because she really helped me understand that you can't force them into playing at things. They choose when they want to play. And a classic example is Tallulah, when we wanted to leave and go to the heath. And if there's anyone else around, they thought, oh, this child's a nightmare. We basically all packed up and we were like, yeah, we're going to go. And we left the house, and Tallulah just went on the pavement. No! Like this, and it was like, whoa, everyone force. And she is a force because we just allowed her to be that, so she's fully connected with her emotions, and then that will start to stabilise once that intellectual brain starts to intellectualise the emotions a bit. But I want that. I want her to throw tantrums and just freak out and just say, no, I'm not having this. I don't want to do that. And then we realised, you know, I said, look, it's okay. I'm going to take the girls for a walk. So I took the girls to the heath. Katerina stayed with Tallulah And then we just said we'll meet up later. And we arrived home 3 hours later, and Tallulah was in the house, Catherine was in the house, so how to get on? So we just went back in the house, stayed out there for 40 minutes, you know? Just stayed in it, whatever she wants, whatever she needs, you know? That's the point. You've got to show that you're there for them, for whatever the emotion is, and whatever they need to do, you're available, rather than, no, I don't want you to do that, my ego needs you to do this, and you must do this, because everyone's watching at me, watching me, and I'm embarrassed, and I've got this going on. And it's not like that. It's like they're so much more important, because then we raise really powerful beings that then don't give a shit what people think. I mean, that's where you've kind of got to go. It's not my business what other people think of me.
I think it's good. I mean, it's good practice. Like, there's been so many experiences where we've been in the supermarket and there's been that, and I've been like, okay, we're sitting on the floor, everyone's staring at us, and they're all saying things and making comments, and like, grand, I'm sitting here, and this is what we're doing right now. But you know, like, I have a work life that. You know, that's the way it is, and so there's often times when I find that it's fine within my environment, it's fine on the days when I'm free, when we're just connected and we're the two of us and we can do whatever we want, but it's on the days where, like, I have a class that's starting in an hour, he's having a moment, and I want to be there for him, but I also have to leave. That's really
that's
hard,
where you need the tools, I think, where positive discipline comes in, because it just gives you the tools and the language to almost be able to negotiate with the child. That's great. And then it can be, okay, you just give them 3 choices.
That's what I see Lydia do a lot, which is amazing. And it's amazing how it changes his...
Because you hand it over to them. And they're now the decision maker. And all that was going on with Tallulah that day is that she basically, she was playing.
She's being led.
She was playing. And we interrupted her play state. Where she was wanting to do what she was doing. We didn't ask permission. So our stuff was more important than hers when we're all equal. This is also the thing that we need to get away from, is thinking that the child is like a pet. You know? Aren't you good? Aren't you clever?
I know.
You know, it's I'm like, oh my god, what?
People always say to me, like, but you need to show him you're the boss. I'm like, no, it's just so far from what I want it to be, that, like, I'm the controller and my child is good if I have control of him at all times, and I can be sit there, stay in this model. It's just, I don't want it to be like that. I know that there's things, you know, I'm not going to be his best pal to pal all the time as well. There's different roles that are there, but I definitely don't want to parent him in a way where it's like, well, my needs are here, and like at night time you just stay in the room and I don't look after you at night time, but in the daytime I can meet your needs. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that's modern parenting has become this thing where the parents who are lauded are the ones who are like, their children go to bed at 7 and they stay in their bed all night and you don't see them till the morning.
They become the teenagers, you know, the rebellious teenagers. Because if you become an authoritarian with your kids, you know, and that's what we're talking about. I'm the boss, and you're lower than me, right? And I'm going to show you how you need to behave, even though my behaviour is inappropriate. But I'm going to show you that's the way that we need to do things. And then later on, what you're going to do, you're going to go to someone like Tony and have a rewilding, reconnecting class. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm going to wear an empowered t-shirt when I'm older, because I'm empowered now. Do you know what I mean? I have to do all this stuff because actually we have authoritarian parents that tell us stuff that we should be doing that isn't really aligned with any kind of natural system or order. It's just a totally unnatural environment and unnatural way of doing things. So it's difficult to get a handle on that. And I appreciate people do have to go to work, but I think what I'd like to see happen.
Here we go. If I were king for a day, but not king.
Change the work environment. Make it okay for the women to go into work, or papas to go into work with slings and babies, and just so that they're not over a certain distance away from the child. And it's not always going to be safe, that I appreciate, you know. But you know, we've got some crazy workhouses around the world, and babies are next to them in that. So why? You know, it's a weird thing that we have to drop them off somewhere and then go somewhere. And I can see it, even co-working spaces, that floors are dedicated. Let's make it so they're dedicated to the mother or the father and the child's needs. And then once they get to a certain age, it's okay to separate them and then have them in another area where the kids are separate, but the mum or the papa can actually go and visit them. And why aren't we creating things like that and looking at, actually, it's how do we get the physical, social and spiritual needs met as a human being? Because that's emotional well-being. You know, and unless you're aligned with that, the more suffering is going to occur emotionally.
Basically, Isn't it funny how we set up our society kind of in this suffering model? Like, and most parts of the world have gone that direction. It just seems so arbitrary. Like it's such a massive dichotomy that we're all searching for like happiness, and we're all creating a thing that makes us like. There's a great, what's that quote? I think it's Gabor Mate or something, who says like, the strangest in the world is that most of us are spending our work lives earning enough money to run away from the thing we're creating with our work.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's what we're cultured into.
But cultured by ourselves.
It's changing. It is changing over time. You can see it, and I kind of like to focus more now on how do we change it?
Yeah.
How do we be more positive within it?
Yeah.
Because you can't change. It's
The
a
thing is,
broken
it's
model.
happened.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to figure out, right? Do we create a broken model to find solutions?
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, yeah.
which is a consumerist model. You know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because they want to keep you lapping it up. Yeah,
Who
interesting.
knows? That's a deep podcast.
Yeah.
That's a really
You know what I
interesting
mean?
one. There's so many more things.
Part 2.
God.
Yeah.
I'm torn between 2 questions. I want to go to feet,
And
and
I
I
want
also
one
want
that
to
I
go
want-
to menstruation.
And there's a story I want you to tell her
Oh,
that she
okay.
hasn't heard yet, that I've heard. But anyway,
okay.
you do feed and menstruation, and we'll go there. How much time have you got left? We're like 20 past 12.
I'm not on the stage until 4:05, so
You're safe. Oh,
Great.
you're safe. Okay,
That's
it's us
great.
who's got the pressure. Okay, grand. Well, then
So,
run.
when I was listening to one of a podcast that you've been on recently, it just occurred to me when I was thinking about it, because another part of the work that I do is working with women and connecting into cycles and positive menstruation and that kind of thing. And you have 3 daughters
Yeah.
and a wife,
Yes.
partner, wife.
Yeah.
And I was interested thinking about your approach and listening to you talking about feet and being barefoot and not having chairs in your houses and all this kind of thing. What is your approach? Have you thought about this? Have you talked about this going to be when your first daughter has her first period? What are the natural ways? Are there ways that you've learned from tribes? What are the things that you think about that?
To
What
be
are
honest,
your
I
thoughts?
think that's for Katerina. I think that's her
Yeah.
post. I don't think that's because Katerina's fully on board. What she's learning at the moment for them didn't quite work because we got pregnant again. You know, so you're going down this path of understanding through an app of taking temperature, understanding what your temperature is, and then marking it, and then knowing your complete cycle and the rhythm of it. And I think that's quite an important thing. She's going to be going down that path and become much more skillful in it. It's something she wasn't really taught. And so I guess through that process, that's going to be one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Katerina. I'm not even skilled enough to go there.
To go there,
in a
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe we'll revisit it.
With Katerina, we'll get the
Yeah,
two on.
with Katerina,
Yeah,
but
that'd be amazing.
Certainly
Yeah.
with Katerina, because
Nice.
it's a whole world I don't think I really am skilled enough to go into.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd say it'll be fascinating for you as well, because it's another whole
It really
avenue.
will.
And when you get, like, I obviously had done all this work before I had my son, and I was thinking I'm going to have a girl, and it's going to be great. I'm going to teach her all the things that I didn't know and how to connect. And then I had a boy, and I was like, oh, okay, well this is a different thing. And then
Yeah.
you have all these girls. You're surrounded by these girls.
Yeah, and I'm learning with them as I go.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So there's loads of stuff around emotions with
Yeah.
Lola Million to do that. And I'm like, wow, I haven't seen this before. I haven't seen this before. I haven't seen
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and you're
Yeah.
always in there. But I guess I'm learning as it goes rather than because it's so individual specific as well. I guess
Yeah.
is another way of looking at it from me.
Did you grow up in a house with other sisters and stuff, or
With a sister.
with a sister? Okay, so you've some knowledge of what it is to be a
Of
young
course.
person, but it's kind of probably a bit forgotten.
Yeah,
It's
and then it's
kinda-
like 3.5 years difference where she's older than me.
Okay, yeah.
And so,
So you're probably the more emotional one in that situation. She's the more.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting. What was your feet
So
question?
feet. Well,
Sorry,
well,
we're going through
I
program.
love feet. I'm a feet nerd. I mean, but your big thing is feet, really. One of the
yeah,
big
and I
things
was
is feet.
joking because you guys are barefoot and I'm in my Vivos, but we've nailed that one.
You were talking on the podcast that I was listening to about how when we have shoes on all the time, that naturally makes us get used to soft, and so then our feet get hard. I think is it that way around, or
Yeah, there's firstly the shape of the shoe.
yeah,
So the more narrow the toe box, well, we create a shoe-shaped foot
yeah,
rather than having a foot-shaped foot. And it happens over time. So they show the lasts of the shoes, like toddlers, are actually wider. If you go to a kid's store,
Yeah.
the toddler shoes are wider than what they would be for, say, Lola and Millie.
Yeah.
So Millie's shoes would already look more narrow.
yeah,
So how does that work? So that means we're actually conditioning them to get more narrow. And then when you put, that changes the shape of the foot, so it becomes more narrow. And then when we put rubber underneath it, the more compliant the material underneath you, the more stiff and rigid the foot will become. above.
Yeah.
So you take away the shape of the foot, force it into a new shape, and then you make it rigid in that form.
And it's having to kind of correct for the underneath it because it doesn't know where things are, sort of thing.
Well,
So it's
it's
like,
your mind. Well, it is
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
your mind doesn't know where support is.
Yeah.
And therefore you make micro adjustments to try and do it, because adaptation, you know, we can adapt to good or bad, and we will choose whatever form it takes to be able to stand here, move, and do what we do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that will take on many different forms. It will mean the muscular structures and tendon structures of the feet will change, the sensory perception from the feet will change.
Yeah.
Then that will then mean the ankles, the knees, the hips, their motion or range will change.
Yeah.
And then that then feeds into the pelvis, the lumbar, the thoracic spine, the respiratory system, head alignment, everything. And then all the trigger points within the body. Yeah.
What do you feel about, like, it's like plantar fasciitis, bone spurs, corns, all these sorts of kind of things? Are they all a product of the shoe thing?
Yeah, like
is that pretty much it?
If you put something really compliant under your foot, the plantar fascia of the foot is it's just tendons, so it's a tendon elastic structure. So you have an arch like that if it lies on the floor. And then if you're running, for instance, when your foot comes up, you have an arch, and when it lands, it goes elastic. Ding, ding. That's when your foot is naked on a hard surface. If you put rubber underneath that, then there is no ding, ding, because the rubber's doing it for you. Therefore, you have plantar fasciitis.
Okay.
Because you've lost the tendon's ability to be elastic, and you've created a tense tendonous structure. Corns, bunions, again, they're symptoms of the shape of the shoe. So a bunion is basically where the big toe that should be really wide, as you are here, and there's a gap because of the footwear looking like this. You can no longer find the big support of the big toe in all its actions. So instead I roll, and then you create a new toe here, which essentially works out as a bunion.
Toe. That's interesting, isn't it?
The gorilla toe. Creating something to stop you from completely collapsing
inside. Okay, interesting.
And it's interesting though, because it's also created this thing around people not liking feet. Because I've just loved it. I grew up barefoot, so I grew up in the Himalayas. We would have been barefoot, running up and down the mountains all day long. Grand. You never felt sore, you never had any of those things, you were running on all sorts of surfaces, everything was grand. And then we came back and went into shoes, and all of that kind of stuff happened. That was different, but I've always had this love for being barefoot and feet, and then obviously going into yoga, that kind of naturally translates. The amount of people coming into class who, they really find it very difficult to take their socks off. They just, they don't want to look at feet, they don't want to have anything to do with them, theirs, other people's. They don't want to touch them.
What's the foot aversion about? Sorry, that's interesting.
Well, we don't see them though, do we?
Is that what it is?
It's like locked away. It's like what I was saying about the kids and being naked going to the beach, and then suddenly like, oh, I don't really feel comfortable about this. And I don't feel comfortable about this part of my anatomy.
Okay, and then it gets fetishized and stuff. It sort of makes a lot of sense.
Topless or your penis out. You know, it's just like it's just. Again, it gets conditioned. It's the conditioning.
But I think that when we have that, it's specifically, it all comes. It's so fundamental, isn't it? Because obviously, feet is, like you're saying, it's the foundation of everything. How we stand, how we move, how we relate to the world. Underneath us, our proprioception, all of that stuff. And I think if we already can't look at our feet, we can't even begin to go, well, what's underneath our feet, and how are we relating to this? It's just like, I'm cut off there. There's this kind of bizarre thing.
Yeah, and when we get them out, it's like this weird pink appendage hanging at, hanging at the bottom of your leg, right?
A noodle.
And the shape of it has changed. And then we don't have pretty shoes on. So the language book would come with that too.
Fascinating.
You know? And I have clients, a lot of female clients, that will say, oh, yeah, but I just don't feel the same about my heels. And it's interesting. It's like, oh, I feel really empowered when I'm wearing my heels. It's really interesting. I mean, there's empowerment within a heel, a shoe that's.
But I think
that's the patriarchal.
Your physiological foundation, which makes you grounded to become empowered. You know.
But it's this patriarchal society where you're only reflecting what might be sexually attractive to the other thing, and the lipstick and that crack,
is it? It's a sign of masculinity. Because the first high heel came in with the Persian armies, right?
Oh, did it?
A sign of masculinity.
Amazing.
They were riding horses.
Oh, no
they
way.
needed a heel. And then the European nobles looked at it as a sign of masculinity and went, right, okay, we're going to have high heels, and then we're going to make them higher and higher and higher over time. So the high heel, the higher it got, the more masculine you were.
It's how those things reverse is bizarre, like the wigs as well.
It's like crazy.
And then it becomes like a massive, like,
but as women, we ape men all the time in order to get power. Because we're not connected to our own power, our own cycles, our own womanness. We're like, okay, what's the successful model? It's male. So
it speaks to the spectrum of sexuality as well.
But again, if you take it back into tribe, you know, again, in the Bengali tribe and in these tribes where they're one, there's no leader, it's anarchy. Not what we call anarchy. Oh my God, everyone's
running around.
People running around. So they are one, but they understand, they established that they're successful as masculine and feminine. And when they come together, of course, that creates an even wheel of interdependence. but they do separate. There's feminine strengths and masculine strengths. Not like the men are trying to be women,
Okay.
women are trying to be men. They understand that that's what there is, and then physically, socially, and spiritually, masculine and feminine needs are met. And this is where it's a bit of a blur at the moment.
Okay,
We have this crazy patriarchal society, and we have the empowered feminine wanting to come in and then operate at the same patriarch level, which the men aren't successful at either, because the system's broken and we're all stressed out and suffering from hormonal, digestive and immune issues, right? So how can anyone be empowered in a system that's broken? Do you know what I mean? We need also to go, okay, do you know what? This isn't working. And I think for female empowerment, it's just so necessary, because suddenly we start to say, there is a difference here. But at the same time, it shouldn't include alienation.
No, it has to be.
And the language has to be very sensitive, because there's some guys out there who haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing right now.
Well, I kind of
Completely lost, you know. And so I do men's retreats and men's workshops and stuff like that, just purely for that. It's just helping them understand that it's okay to be a man, but you have to be a mature man. You have to be a wild sense of what masculinity is, not based on this immature model that's broken. You know? No one wants to be successful in that. You know?
And again, it comes down to that parenting in the first while as well, and what are we modelling at home, and how do we talk in our language, and how do we feel about ourselves, and all of that. Like for me, it was very, very important that with my son, that I was naked in front of him a lot, and that we were naturally naked together. Not like I was just trying to be naked, but we would just naturally be naked. Here I am being naked. He's like, Mom, Jesus. No, just like we have baths together still. We sleep in the same bed. We're naked. All of that kind of stuff. And people are like, God, don't you think that's a bit weird? And isn't he trying to touch your vagina? I'm like, yeah, of course he is. He's just going like,
out of curiosity.
What's that? It's the same, elbow, shoulder, whatever. It's not that he's sexually trying to get into me. He's just going, what's that like? How is it different? But for him, I want him to see, like, this is what a woman's body looks like. This is what a woman's body looks like when they've had a baby, when they haven't had loads of work done, when they've got their period, and he knows all the stuff. Like, he knows about periods, he knows the whole thing. He knows all of that stuff, and it doesn't make him like obsessed about it. He's not constantly asking about it or trying to touch me. He's just going, oh yeah. And then hopefully, like, as he gets older, he's not going to have this idea of this is woman, this is what woman looks like, through this image that's airbrushed and changed and all this stuff. It's like, this is beautiful, and it can be beautiful too in all the different ways. I think that that's really so key.
It's important, yeah. It's a bit like what I was saying about Ibiza again, that, you know, or any nudist beach, you can take your kids to it. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Really important.
And changing rooms. We were just saying this on another podcast the other
that's
day.
Changed.
It's changed.
Changing rooms changed. You've got your own little cubicle that you go into, and
my friend was in one the other day, and it said like she got naked in the changing room after swimming, and there were people there with their kids who kind of made a bit of a like, just take my child over here kind of thing. And the next time she went back, there was a sign on the wall saying, don't indecently expose yourself in front of other people's children. And she was like, this is just my body.
Like, it's the only place that you're actually publicly allowed to do that.
I'm saying it's so narrow. The social norms can become so narrow. You know, and that's why we need to experience and go different petri dishes and see other things. Because imagine you're just cultured into that.
Sure. Pretty shocking when you come outside it.
Well, we don't have any more, and it's such a shameful thing that I think that most girls that you talk to now who are approaching kind of sexuality in those kind of teenage years, their idea, their worries and concerns, and I say this all the time, but for me it's just such a profoundly shocking thing that when I was first delving into sexuality, my number one concern wasn't what do I look like and will they like me and do they think I'm going to do a good job. It was like, do I like it? Does this feel nice? Do I want to do it again? And the girls now, they're going, do I look normal? Do I taste normal? Do I smell normal? Did they think I could sing as well? Wow. And that, for me, is such a profound thing as like a result of all this stuff that we've been talking about. That our first experience with sex isn't like, am I enjoying it? Does it feel nice in my body? It's, does it feel
nice?
Am
I being it?
Am I, exactly. And I think that's it. I mean, that comes from that you're not in the changing room with women in their 70s and women who have babies and women who haven't. And you're not
identify it.
You're going, oh yeah, people have hair there and some don't, and some do this with it and some do that with it, and some have bellies and some don't. And like, oh great, okay, that's actually normal. My thing. It's not like.
Yeah, but also we have this weird world of pornography that suddenly exploded, or you know, we didn't have that. You could Google search whatever and just go on to Pornhub or whatever it is. And that's the
The
weird
reference
model.
points are all over
It's
the place.
terrible
Yeah.
for the young guys that are growing up, and it's terrible for the young women because
Yeah.
they're going through this process of, they're expecting me to do that, and the
Yeah.
guys are thinking, oh, okay, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So they come from it from a really aggressive kind of
Domineering kind of way.
yeah, terrible
Yeah.
process, right?
And also
aggressive,
that's the neural pathways being built in those
And
moments
again,
of formation.
so there's no, there's no love making in that situation. There's no becoming one or getting lost in the collective emotion of love making. It's purely just this aggressive sex. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing.
And there's no like other.
And then being cut off from what it is to be a woman or a man. Right?
Yeah.
Imagine that's all you see is your education. And
I know, it's kinda
that's
weird,
what we do
isn't
when
it?
we come together.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a disaster.
Yeah,
It
it
is,
really
isn't
is.
it? And so when you're, I mean, you have the internet at home. Like, are there curiosities where you're kind of having to go, okay, this is a curiosity we're going to have to like curb, or what will you do around pornography? What do you like? Because that's something. Is that something that is there a positive model that you can put out there, like what in terms of sexual exploration that isn't,
Well, I
because
think
pornography has existed for a long
we will
time,
have
I
to
guess.
sit down with them, with
Yeah.
the girls, and just say, look, this is what's out there, and this is what's being seen.
Yeah.
And and I heard something about kids also being numb to it over time.
Yeah, sure.
It's because they're so exposed to it that it will just be whatever. And so then we would need something else, even more graphic.
Yeah,
As time goes on.
Absolutely.
So I guess by the time I've got time, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Who knows what the norm will be at that
Yeah,
point? Because
yeah.
it's accelerating that world, isn't it?
True, absolutely. But
Through
so is this
tech.
world.
So I guess the conversation will be, well, this is what will happen normally, and this is what is out there in the compromised zoo that we live in.
I think the thing as well, though, is
Sorry,
it comes
No,
back
no,
down
no.
to like
human laboratory.
you know,
There we go.
what's happening.
Yeah.
I think it comes back down to like raising children that have enough security in themselves and who they are to make decisions and analysis, to be able to go like, yes, this is there, and I don't feel like that's a good thing for me, or like my friends might be doing that. That's just not what we do in our family, or it's not what I feel like is okay to do. It's not like we're not going to like take them away to a different place where they're never going to see any of that stuff. They're still going to have to interact
They're
in
still
the world.
exposed to it, right? They have to be. And then it's just like these are the things we do, right?
Yeah.
This is what's out there. It's no different to, we were saying about food earlier, right? So we do this thing, well, we take them into the supermarket, and it'll be no different to going foraging in nature. You'll have poisonous foods in nature.
Yeah.
You have wild foods in nature.
Yeah,
The supermarket is no different. There's poisonous foods, and there's foods that are going to nourish you. And that you can relate that to everything, right? These are the things that are out there, and this can be toxic, and it can breed this, or we can go over here, and and this is, it's just, again, it's how we coach them into, and it's a coaching process. But it's also, they're again observing behaviours, don't forget, not just languages.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, big time. It's the
So
patterning,
if you
not
have a
just
beautiful,
the
loving relationship, and they see that, then that's the norm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's also part of that.
Cool.
But all of you having that beautiful, loving relationship as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. We got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Are we wrapping?
Unfortunately, yeah, we got to wrap.
Oh, I want to keep talking forever.
Ditto. I didn't get to ask you to tell that story, but anyway, damn
What
it.
was the
What
story?
story?
Oh, it's the constellation therapy story thing. Because I have eczema, she has skin
Psoriasis.
stuff, you have psoriasis. It was just an interesting thing about the emotionality of things and the handed down
Can we
ancestral
not
stuff.
talk about it quickly?
John is off stage right now.
We have 15 minutes. We said we'd be there at 1.
Did we say 1?
Yeah.
Did we say meet him? Let's go for
Okay.
it. Let's hit it. Okay, so sorry, I was listening to a little bit of a podcast where, and we're really like, this is one of my most interesting. It's such a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Emotions and physical consequence, and like be that in how your body patterns, how maybe like I've hip dysplasia, and anytime I've released anything there, I've suddenly felt like weird, like almost developmental things, mentally and socially and spiritually, weird things are happening. IBS is the obvious characteristic of it, where there's this issue with vagal nerve tone. There's this neural peptides that produce resultant emotions that are definitely harming our body. They're making our body change. But I don't think I'd ever seen or heard such a really succinct example of where that might have come from as your story around this. Do you mind telling a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I through the guy brought in natural birth in Yehudi. His whole thing, well, if you're going to be a parent, then you need to do this for your kids, and you need to go and see a family constellation. And it was like, what's a family constellation? He was like, well, it's a form of therapy and I think it was brought in by the Zulus originally. It was taken from the Zulus as in a form of, they would ask permission from their ancestors. And so it would start with a circle like this, let's say, and you'd have however many, it could be 16 people in this circle, and a chair that's free next to the family constellationist. And they will call people up who have issues. So it might be 4 people in this circle of 16 have issues, and the rest are there as representatives. And the way that the representatives work is they will be picked as either the symptom of whatever the person has, or to play a role, and that might mean parent, father, country, landscape, animals, plants, rocks, whatever it is, they will bring it into the situation. So the first one I went to was rather mind-blowing, because I didn't have no expectations. I just walked in and thought, okay, we'll just go to this thing, it's going to be great, and sat in the room really chilled. And then the lady who was running it asked the first one to come up, so she sat next to him. She said, well, tell me your heart's desire. And the woman just started crying. Like, well, I just wanted to get pregnant, and I can't get pregnant, and my parents hate my partner. They didn't want him around, and this, and I really want to marry him, and just the whole thing was a disaster. So she said, okay, we're going to go and pick someone. We're going to pick someone. So we'll pick someone to be your symptom. Let's bring the symptom in. We're going to pick someone to pick your mother, your father, your partner, and you. And you position them where you feel that they need to be in the room. And what's said is that they pop up their birthday cards, and suddenly that sounds like I'm going to pick that person. It's almost like they already start channeling the person.
Amazing.
And they put them in the room, and I'm always picked as dad. Right? Every constellation I've done, I'm always dad. We did a whole day, we did a weekend of them at one stage, and it was beyond a joke. I'm the dad again.
No way.
And so I was dad,
interesting.
and I'm standing there as Papa like this, and my wife is here, the mum, and the daughter's here, and the partner's here, and the symptom is here. And so the woman who I'm standing next to here, I can't actually bear to be next to her, so I keep moving like this.
But you don't know why, you're just intuitively
I just like sweating. I really feel really uncomfortable, like just horrible about being next to her. So I keep moving and shifting, and yet at the same time she wants to keep coming closer to me. So she's going through, I need to be near this man, and I'm going, well, she just leave me alone. And I'm drawn to a woman outside the circle.
Okay.
And so I go over, I move out to the circle and move towards her, and the lady stops it, and she just said, look, did your father have an affair? You know? And she said, no, but he was madly in love with this woman and she died. And everyone knows about it in the family, which is like, wow. Anyway, well, it's clearly her, let's pick her up. So she brings her in like a contestant.
What's behind door number 3?
Yes, and then she comes. Let's bring her in, and at that point I just hit the ground, just crying.
Wow.
Totally grief-stricken. I've never had grief like that, you know.
And
I've had grandparents die, I've had loss of pets, whatever, and I'm just kind of like cycle of life stuff. But I was now experiencing their perception of that death, not mine.
Wow.
And just couldn't stand up even, just weak and weeping, and then the practitioner, then the facilitator, then give me a series of things to say to clear that, which then the lady could then sit down, I could then stand up, and then I could go and join my wife, the mother, feel perfectly comfortable to her. She's now really happy because I'm by her side. Wow. And then the partner could then, and then it all just come together, and then suddenly you could see it, bizarrely, it just looked like a wedding in the room.
That's amazing.
It's nuts. And so then 4 more people went, and then I was going later. 3 more people, then I was going later. And I'd gone out for lunch, and I remember going out for lunch thinking, oh, these people have just got some real issues going on. I don't feel like I've got stuff going on. You know? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I arrived back, and I said, you know, I think, why don't you give someone else the go? Because I just, you know, I really don't think I've got much going on here. I feel like they've got a lot of trauma, and what I'd heard up until then, there's some crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like stuff from slavery and people in shackles, and they anyway, it's just crazy stuff. And so she's Wissy.
Oh dear.
Wissy.
You're
like she knows.
What have I done? So I'm now sitting there,
on you.
and she put her hand on my knee and she just said, "Tell me about your dad." And I was like, whoa. Like this. I said, okay. I love my dad very much, but we're just not having this real connection, like hug relationship. But I appreciate that's not him, that can also be me, and also there's there's also his earliest years, so he's just carrying forward again what he's inherited and so on. So it's obviously there's something there. Anyway, it turns out she then said, right, okay, pick someone to represent you, someone to represent your mum, your dad, and the symptom. So I put my mum and me over that side, and my dad's over here, and the symptom's here. And the symptom is psoriasis at this stage. I'm going there for psoriasis. I didn't want my kids to get psoriasis. I have it, my dad has it, my grandmother has it, my great-grandfather has it. So the autoimmune is there, there's a predisposition, and then something along that lifestyle has made it predetermined, let's say. Something within the petri dish that we're cultured into. And so I'm then there with my mum, and the symptom, the facilitator says to the symptom, how do you feel? And they say, John, I just feel so much for the father who's standing out here on his own. Okay, let's ask the father, how are you feeling? I'm on a lonely island, but I feel I'm okay with it, you know? It's like,
this is so interesting.
Isn't it?
Wow.
And then how are you, to me, which is me?
Yeah.
I feel really great, really protected. And so my mum's like in there with me, and I'm feeling really loved. And my mum's like super happy. She's like, yeah, I've got what I want over here. Do you know what I mean? That was insane. Just suddenly that's what they're experiencing. They're the emotions they're getting. Just like the emotion of me crying on the floor, that's what they're experiencing. And so they're channeling this, right? And so then she said, right, okay, let's bring in contestant number 2. Let's bring in the grandparents. The grandparents are now standing behind me. So there's my grandma and my grandfather of my dad's side. And then how do they feel? And again, it was this relationship between dad and dad. The mum was protected behind my dad, and yet I'm here protecting my mum in a way. And so there's this weird stuff going on between my mum and her mum. That's another podcast.
Okay.
We're getting into psoriasis now, right? So then what we find is they then bring another set of grandparents in, another set of grandparents. It goes back and they're all like this.
Really?
And it's weaving like that through who psoriasis has come through, as in who's inherited the predisposition within that relationship.
Okay.
And then it goes all the way back to one person who's like this. And they're turning their back on everyone in the line. And they just said, I can't bear to be in here. I feel so ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I'm this. And my ancestry is like Nordic Celts, right? So God knows what must have been going on there. You know, you can imagine, can't you? So it would have been someone's got someone pregnant in whatever form. And they're either ashamed of it spiritually or whatever's going on in that situation. And they were the ones that it looks like had psoriasis, and their psoriasis is paternal proof running through that line. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so then I was given this thing of, oh, I do not need psoriasis for paternal proof, and then suddenly in the circle, all the men come together, and they're okay and they're hugging. It's like really mad.
God, that's.
It's so direct. It's amazing, isn't it?
Totally amazing.
Isn't it?
And it's straight in. It's like, boom, and you just see it. You see a play of. You see it as a play. It's an act that's just the world is a stage, and women and men are many players, and each man plays as many parts. Like Shakespeare in there, right? It's just like insane what's happening.
That's wild.
And did your psoriasis go?
Within a week, I didn't have any psoriasis, but it's not to say I don't get it. I've got a little patch here, and a little one on this elbow. And if I fly like I did a long haul flight to LA, I had no psoriasis going in. I landed and all the sites where I had psoriasis just peaked up a bit and they were quite red. And then it will go over a period of time, it will go into remission again. It's like even on Rich Roll's podcast, I'm talking about this and he's like, yeah, but you still have it, man. And I was like, yeah, but again, it's like when something, it's weird, it's a weird one with psoriasis. Because you get all your physical stuff going on, everything's in place, I'm eating really amazing, my sleep's in. And then it's something out of the ordinary that gets ramped up. And so with that experience with Rich and the flight, it would have been, oh, I'm going to record with Rich Roll. You know? And I'm going to go and do a long haul flight, and I'm going to be on a plane for 11.5 hours of radiation all around me, and then I'm going to land, and my body clock's completely out, everything's out. And then over a period of 3 days, it will settle again.
And you wonder how much is that you telling your body that story, and so your body going, okay, I know it'll be here for 3 days and then it'll be gone. Just that reassurance from
just understanding it now that that's what it is. And it's like, oh, I don't need psoriasis for paternal proof. You know, oh, I don't need psoriasis, and then going back into that and believing it as a belief system.
And do you find
that's
that
biology of belief again? You know.
Do you find it comes up more when you're not with your kids?
I don't know. That's actually a good idea.
So I'm just wondering, like, were you flying away from them, and were you flying away from them?
And I think with Ibiza, I'd go through cycles of that with Ibiza.
That's
so
really
that's quite interesting, so that goes into paternal lines again, you see. Quite interesting that. I should observe that. go into that.
We'll follow up with you.
Thank
Cool,
you.
deadly.
No, do. It's brilliant.
Nice.
Thank you for that.
Great,
That's
nice.
great. There we go.
Okay, so that was so good.
Thank you
We
so
could
much.
talk forever. I'm
Really.
really excited.
We haven't even touched on, like, you know,
Epigenetics.
Oh, and then
Epigenetic
I'm running.
stuff
Have we
and
covered the run? Did we cover the run?
No.
we haven't covered that at all. We haven't touched
No,
that.
it doesn't matter. Well, I'm running barefoot 30 miles a day for 30
you've got
consecutive days.
John
Land's
O'Groats.
End, John O'Groats. Did we cover that?
No, we
No,
didn't,
but
but I
we
just
know.
read about it.
Boom,
Amazing.
there we go.
When is that?
That's September the 1st, and so along the route, it's like, again, I've got my physical, social, spiritual needs met, feeling emotional well-being, have everything in place. Now what?
Right.
Why
okay.
are we rewilding? Why are we doing this? Well, if there's this huge sustainability environment issue in being waved like a big thing in front of us right now, so because I can do all that and I can run from Land's End to John O'Groats barefoot, and it's seen as this completely extreme, insane thing, but it creates a platform, and with that platform I can interview a sustainability expert every day along the path and raise awareness for something else.
Yeah.
Great.
That's what I'm doing.
Great concept.
Yay.
Boom.
Best of luck with this.
People can find you where?
On Instagram, not as Tony Riddle, but as at the Natural Lifestylist, or my website, which is Tony Riddle. So that's tonyriddle.com.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was
Thank you.
amazing.
Thanks for your time.
you.
Brill.
Thank you everyone
Super.
for listening.
Quickie shout out, thank you very much to Swivel, who made this podcast device that you're watching on right now. Thank you to Clear Light Saunas, who we're ambassadors for their infrared saunas, which are phenomenal things. Go and find more on our feeds about them, and come and talk to us if you want to go and get invested in them, because you should. Or just get outside in the morning and probably do what you do, which is just see daybreak every morning for a couple hours.
Yeah, just get outside.
That's it.
Set a
So forget the
timer,
sauna.
Set a timer, 2 hours 24, and then
Yeah.
you've at least got 10% of your day outside.
That's it,
Yeah.
big time. Okay,
Boom.
cool. And the last sponsorship, but not the least, is these guys, Newzest, who are plant-based protein people who we love.
Wow, okay.
And this is a goodie bag for you
Is it?
to take away,
Isn't it?
with lots and
Wow,
lots of
look
bits
at
and bobs.
that. Super, thank you.
Yay, nice. Oh, look
turn
at that.
it
The
that
blank
way,
side.
does that help?
Thank you very much. Oh,
Boom,
look at
there
that.
we go.
Boom, branding.
There you
We're
go.
so good at this.
Branded. We've been branded.
Oh dear, like a cattle. But yeah, so Newzest are one of those good brands. Even if you get branded by them, you're kind of
I'll
like,
check
it's
it
not
out.
so sore. So what have we got in there? You've
What
got
have we
some of their plant-based protein, their new turmeric chai stuff.
So I was at Justin's house this morning,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and I was having that on my brekkie already.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, rock and roll. Oh,
Super.
good people who know good things.
And look,
So a bit of sage. I figured
this
there's
is
some
such
things
a
you
great
do.
box.
Oh, okay.
Disposable cup,
Yeah, cool, good.
Love
Okay.
it.
Lots of things. And some snacks for you having with your kids. So that's like sprouted activated almonds, goji's and mulberries.
This is wonderful.
Some mindful bite snacks. What else I put in there?
Teas,
Alkaline
alkaline
herbs.
herbs.
And the
We put in
really cool
one really
thing-
cool. Go on.
Oh yeah.
Where's
The
it
cool
going?
thing about the protein powder is that you can cook it in all your baking and your porridge. So like I use it with my son
Oh wow.
in porridge and millet porridge and stuff like that in the morning. Then you don't need to add any sweetener.
At all.
It's just naturally sweet because it's sweetened with a thing called contemporary fruit extract, which
Great.
is glycemically inverse.
Yeah.
So it's really stabilising for your blood sugar
Oh,
levels.
that's amazing.
There's a natural deodorant from Wire Botanicals as well, from down
Oh,
from
yeah,
West Cork.
they're really
Good
good.
things, nice things.
Natural Irish
Beautiful.
products.
Super.
So thanks
Thank you very
again.
much.
Cheers,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Nice one, Teddy. We'll
It's a
see you
wrap.
again, I hope. Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Great.